What is going on, Colts Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. Well, guys, the NFL trade deadline is coming up very quickly on Tuesday. So a lot of people have been throwing around, Derek, this idea of should the Indianapolis Colts be buyers at the NFL trade deadline? And a lot of us have been saying, yes, the Indianapolis Colts should be looking to add a player or a couple players here on the trade deadline, add to their defensive side of the ball. That's kind of where we've been focused on. So today, guys, we are going to look at a few players here that the Indianapolis Colts could target come the trade deadline to add to that defense. But before we do that, just want to say this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, the Indianapolis Colts against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. And Derek, a Pittsburgh team that really struggles against the pass. And if you're looking at player props right now, you know, the one about Daniel Jones, this is kind of an interesting one, man, because Daniel Jones hasn't necessarily slung the ball around a ton, throwing for 300 yards. Like he's only had, I think, one or two games where he's done that. But this Pittsburgh defense, they're dead last in the NFL in terms of yards allowed. And right now, the odds are 251.5 passing yards. I don't know. Where do you stand on that, Derek? Do you think Daniel Jones will have more than that, or do you think he'll have less than that? Where do you kind of sit on that?
You said the number was what again? 250?
251.5 right now.
You know, that's tough because, again, like you said, it's been that would be right at about an average between a low day for Daniel Jones and a high day for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones typically on a high day is somewhere between 270 and 290. And then the low days, he's somewhere between 210 and 230. So that's right there in the freaking middle. But I do agree with you. I do think that this is going to be another one of those games where the Colts are very often attacked early with the pass. They like to score quickly. They like to move down the field quickly. I do believe that they will do that. As long as weather permitting is good on Sunday out there in Pittsburgh, as long as there's no crazy wind or as long as it's not raining bullets out there, then I think that Daniel Jones will likely eclipse that number.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is one, Derek, with Tyler Warren. It's 56.5 receiving yards. You know, we just had our friend Jared on from Believe in Steelers, and he talked about how if I'm the Colts, I'm using Tyler Warren a lot. So I think I'm going to slam the over there on Tyler Warren, over 56.5 their receiving yards. I think he's going to be featured a lot in this game, and I think the Colts are going to try to get him the ball early and often. So I'm definitely going to shoot the over there for Tyler Warren. But guys, those are just a couple examples of some player props for this Week 9 matchup against the Colts and Steelers. Again, there's so many more there that you can check out on FanDuel. But again, shout out to them for being our sponsor for the 2025 season. All right, Derek, let's look at some players, and these aren't every player. I will admit that. This isn't every single player that could become available, but these were some names that kind of I've heard that are kind of more the well-known names here that people have mentioned for the Indianapolis Colts. And actually, Derek, we've heard some reports coming out about the Indianapolis Colts potentially being in the market for corners. Like that's kind of been the big thing I've been hearing about. Jordan Schultz has been a guy that just recently came out and said Indy's looking at DBs. They're looking at adding some corners here, come trade deadline. And there's some good players here that I think would definitely be fits for the Indianapolis Colts. One guy that I think a lot of people have thrown around, but I'm not sure of his availability, would be Tariq Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks. Again, a guy the Colts loved in the pre-draft process. Now, it is a big, long corner. I think he's 6'2", 6'3". He's big. He's a big guy. Now, do you think he's the type of corner you would want for the Colts to acquire? I mean, a guy that's still fairly young in his NFL career. Is he the type of guy that you think fits what the Colts want to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is it's all about fit. And he's definitely been a name that's been brought up by a bunch of people, not even just fans, but just people in the media that hear things. No doubt. And, we know that Ballard has a fetish, right? When it comes to corners, he likes them a certain way. He likes them long. He likes them, as guys that are bigger in frame and, can handle that sort of situation. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised at all. It's just a matter of whether or not you can actually get him. I mean, remember, it takes two to tango, right? I mean, we got to remember that Ballard has probably made calls to about 30 different players, right? But like on probably 90% of them, teams are not actually that interested in actually wanting to, trade some of these players away unless the offer is just too good not to listen to, right? So,
Sure.
it's all just going to come down to, can the Colts actually get something done?
Well, some people have said, obviously Seattle's a contender. We know that. But
Mm-hmm.
people have said, hey, he's on the last year of his contract, but he doesn't actually fit what the Seattle Seahawks want to do defensively, right? There's been like all these things that people have said, maybe they'll try to like ship him off, get a mid-round pick for him or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a possibility for a team potentially coming to acquire him, give them, some sort of day 2 pick for him. I mean, to me, Derek, I look at that and I say he is the guy that intrigues me the most. Because I actually looked, I think he's 6'4", which is crazy. So he is a physical freak. You don't see many corners with that size or that frame. You just don't. That's very rare, very unique. I mean, Derek, in his rookie season in 2022, he was an absolute stud. I mean, he led the NFL in interceptions. So you think, okay, change of scenery. If that fits what the Colts want to do, I mean, this is a kid that's still very young, and it feels like there's still more you could get out of him as a player that's been inconsistent so far through his NFL career, but definitely is just oozing talent there. What are you kind of your thoughts there on him overall as a player? Because it does feel like he's a guy that you could buy low on and potentially get a high reward for.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said at the beginning of that, it's just a matter of whether or not they want to actually get rid of him because of, the feeling in Seattle is that, they can handle what it is that they're doing right now. But yeah, again, we know Ballard likes corners a specific way. There's been only a few times that Ballard has gone against the mold of the longer, high instincts, type player. And, that was Kenny Moore, right? And that obviously has worked out very well. But, even when we got Charvarius Ward this offseason, I mean, Charvarius Ward certainly no small, short corner either. Definitely has a really long arm span. And, also you drafted Justin Wally, who, again, also not like super high on the totem pole of, frame and everything, but certainly not a small corner. So, it definitely would make sense for the type of mold of corner that Ballard wants to bring in for sure.
And you think, man, you just give some of these, guys, you focus so much this offseason, man, on what you've done from a coaching standpoint to, a player acquisition standpoint, like to give, your defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, who, mind you, is a big defensive back guy, right? We know that to give, all these guys on this defensive staff just a specimen like a Reek Woolen. I think that's what's so exciting about it is you feel like if there's anybody that can get the most out of a player like that, it's the Indianapolis Colts with all the guys they have and all the focus that we've seen the Colts, really make this offseason, and also just like we said, like the coaching staff, the, players they've acquired, like the big primary focus that we have seen the Indianapolis Colts make, man. It seems like that's something that if you're, the Colts, you just want to get a guy that you feel like you can say, hey, Chris Hewitt, DB coach, get your hands on this guy and just see what you can do, right? That's what I think is the most exciting. So I think that out of all the players here, and sorry, we're talking about Reek Woolen just because he is a player that is so talented, and all these guys are, but you just think like if you can just give him the guy, if he's available, that you think he can get the most out of, and maybe there's somebody else that he's looking at. Like you're just like, what can be done with a mid-20s corner that has had very much success in the past?
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see just what kind of corner they're looking at, and and another reason why I mean the Indianapolis Colts may be looking for a corner so much versus making a priority of the edge group is again just all the injuries you have had this year. It's been so crazy that you're just probably thinking to yourself, we got to just try to find another one, right? Because you're cycling through all these corners. You can only do it for so long, right? You want to try to go out there and find another marquee guy, right? Because even if for a guy like Rick Woolen, if you're not going to re-sign him after the year's over, at least you give a corner like Jalen Jones, a chance to get healthier. He'll be still on his rookie contract when you play him again next year, and Jalen Jones can sneak into there, right? Or Justin Wally sneaks back in, right? So, you still have that competition for that number 2 outside corner spot. You'll still have Ward, you'll still have Kenny. So, your corner room would look very good after trading for someone who would be on their last year of their contract. So, it would make sense for the Colts.
And if they ball out, you bring them back and you have 2 really good corners.
Mm-hmm.
You can never have enough good corners, Derek. And if you can bring in a guy, like a young player that's still in his mid-20s and you pay him a decent contract, I know you're going to have to work around some other contracts too. But, I mean, like you said, if you can lock that down, like your number 1 and number 2 corner for the next 3-4 years, like that's huge. That's absolutely huge to have that piece of your defense. So, yeah, it's potentially a low risk, high reward here. But let's continue on with a few other players, Derek, that we've kind of heard about too. Another player that they've talked about as well has been Alontae Taylor of the New Orleans Saints. Derek, we know the Saints have not been great this year. It's no secret. Saints are one of the worst teams in the NFL. But Alontae Taylor, at least according to Jeremy Fowler, it would be a surprise if he is traded. But that's definitely one that bears monitoring because Taylor is a very versatile player. He can play a little bit of everything. We know how valuable that is in the defense, how much Lou Anarumo values that, and everything like that. So in terms of Alontae Taylor, Derek, when you're kind of looking at him, it's been kind of a hot name that I've just seen some people throw around here. I mean, he's again, another young player. He's 26 years old. And he's a player that I feel like if you're the Indianapolis Colts, that could be a player, again, similar to Rick Woolen. He's a young player. You potentially buy him low and see what he could give you there if you're Indianapolis. And at the worst, he's just a rental for 1 year. And then, you figure out your cornerback room moving forward. I don't know. What are your thoughts there just on Alontae Taylor? I mean, he's not a small corner either. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, again, the numbers are not all that impressive. 24 tackles on the year, or at least solo tackles, and 4 passes defended, 1 sack, no interceptions on the year or forced fumbles. So not really much of a guy that creates turnovers, but you don't always need that when you're on this defense. This defense gives you a lot more opportunities to have those sort of situations. And like you said, young guy, still can, be a part of something. I mean, he is still under his rookie contract. I mean, was just in the 2022 draft. So, I mean, it's not like it's that far out from where you were at before. And like you said, the numbers for height and weight are right at about what Ballard typically looks at. So, all in all, I mean, it doesn't get me excited or anything, but it certainly could be a decent addition.
I mean, I think he's a middle corner right now. At least PFF grades him kind of right in the middle, Derek, in terms of starting corners. 41st in the NFL, so actually probably a little bit better than the middle, which, for a guy that's 26 years old and you're like, okay, could he even get better, if you just give him a new, fresh set of circumstances, potentially there, right? And again, it's another young guy that you can just have in there competing for number 2 corner when Jalen Jones gets back. And at the worst, he's a depth piece for you, right? So I wouldn't mind that at all, especially because the Saints, if they're going to be fire sailing, man, maybe you can get some of these guys for the cheap here, coming here in the next week or so. So, yeah, I think he would be a player that I definitely would like if I'm the Indianapolis Colts. Wouldn't mind him at all. A pretty good corner, still fairly young, and he's a versatile guy as well, which I think would definitely help you out in that department. Now, Derek, I have 2 more players at corner, and then we can move to a couple other positions that would definitely interest me here. One guy is a guy that Lou Anarumo knows very well, Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, he's a guy, Derek, that he's a guy that has kind of had some up and down moments with the Cincinnati Bengals. He got benched just recently, but I mean, he still is a young guy that the Indianapolis Colts could look at. We've already seen them with the Jermaine Pratt signing. We've seen the Colts, find loose guys in the past. So I don't know what your thoughts are on Cam Taylor-Britt. I know he's not, out of the three corners, he's probably technically the worst corner that we've talked about so far for sure. But, still a young guy. He's 26 years old as well. Could be a fit for what Lou wants to do. What are your thoughts on Cam Taylor-Britt?
Yeah, he's a tiny bit smaller than Taylor, the last DB that we talked about. And like you said, the tackle numbers are not, like, just the overall numbers themselves, not great. The same number of pass deflections, but less tackles, no interceptions, no forced fumbles this year. I know that the Bengals defense as a whole is quite literally the worst defense in the National Football League. Definitely a guy that was better under Lou Anarumo. But, again, Cody, it's strange because, he had 4 interceptions in 2023, had 3 interceptions in 2024. But if you even go to his rookie year, didn't have any interceptions that year, doesn't have any interceptions this year so far. So, I don't know. It could very well just be the fact that, not having Lou Anarumo in there might have hurt his playmaking opportunities. Seems more like a corner that, oftentimes doesn't really make his own plays. The system that he's in oftentimes helps with that regard. I don't know. I could be very well mistaken, but like you said, it's the worst name we've looked at so far. Who knows how he would do on our defense? If I'm trading for someone, I want to go higher up.
This would probably be, to me, Derek, like you made a splash elsewhere, like at another position, and you're just adding him for some more cornerback depth. I'm not, trading for him, expecting him to come in and start it all. I really don't. Like, I think you easily play Jalen Jones over him, and potentially he finds a role and finds a redemption arc here, with his old defensive coordinator. So that would be something that I think the Colts could get him for a late day 3 pick easily, and potentially just adding more depth in there for a guy that knows Lou Anarumo. And like we said, had the best years under Lou Anarumo in his NFL career. So that would be something that I think might be worth, if you're not going to swing for the fences and try to get one of these other corners, maybe that's something that the Indianapolis Colts try to look at there, just because of the scheme fit there with Lou Anarumo. And we obviously know how much, Lou Anarumo likes his guys. So I think that would definitely be something, Derek, if you're looking at for the Colts, that they could potentially go after. But that's just one name that has been floating around NFL circles just because of the connection there. There's another name, Derek, here that I want to also just point to on another struggling squad that, a lot of people have talked about as well. That guy would be Rasul Douglas, the cornerback for the Miami Dolphins. I feel like I've heard this name the last couple of years when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. I feel like I've seen people kind of project him to the Colts in free agency and things like that. Actually, Derek, even though he's a little bit older, he's been one of the better corners in football so far in a bad Miami squad. PFF ranks him as the 14th best cornerback overall. He's played over 450 snaps. This would certainly be more of a rental here, Derek, but Rasul Douglas is playing some good football on a pretty bad Miami squad.
Yeah, it's funny because I have also heard that name. A lot of people were shocked that the Indianapolis Colts didn't give him a shot over Xavier Howard, his former teammate. So definitely I would not be surprised if they did this. Now, I would say to the defense of this, he typically plays nickel. So that in and of itself can kind of be a little strange. He could play outside. How does that impact him in total? I'm not sure, but talk about a guy that has been across a bunch of different freaking teams. Obviously, in the 8 games against Miami this year, 30 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, no interceptions, but 5 pass deflections. That's probably that's one of the better on the lower totem pole of players that I would be fine trying to make a play on.
Yeah, I mean he's this good veteran. Like I don't think you can have enough good veterans. Even if, like you said, he does play more inside, then okay, I understand that. But that's just a name that, like we said, we've seen the Colts name be around for quite some time. So yeah, that's definitely. I just wanted to mention him just because of that. But he may just not be the right fit for what the Colts want to do. But again, he's playing some good football. Miami's not looking great, although they did win last week. They're still not a great football team, so maybe they're trying to sell a little bit. We'll just have to see on that. Now, moving on to a couple other positions here, Derek. A lot of people have obviously talked about some of the edge guys that the Indianapolis Colts want to go after. We obviously know about the Trey Hendrickson stuff. I don't know where that currently sits, or if the Bengals still want way too much for Trey Hendrickson. I would wager probably yes, knowing that the Bengals and what they do. But that's definitely one that I know we've talked about a lot, so we don't need to talk about that much anymore. You guys know our thoughts on Trey Hendrickson. He's a great player. He'd fit well in this Lou Anarumo defense. Now, a couple other names here, Derek, that I want to point out, and this one's kind of interesting too, because I think it really depends what happens here on Thursday night, Derek. Like, does Miami, if Miami wins, I don't think these guys or Rasul Douglas will be available for Miami, but the two pass rushers have been brought up in conversation. Jalen Phillips is a guy that was also taken in that 2021 draft. He's a big physical player, and everything like that. Gets a lot of pressure, does some of that stuff, potentially could be a fit there. And then you have Bradley Chubb, who we know very well, Derek, from that 2018 draft when the debate was Chubb or Nelson, right? You remember that whole debate that was going on. So both players that, we're pretty familiar with here for Miami, but, could either of those guys, in your opinion, be fits here for the Indianapolis Colts if they're looking to potentially make a splash at edge? Would any of those players be someone you would be interested in?
Yeah, Bradley Chubb, the player that was taken a pick before our beloved Big Q. Everyone remembers that. The only reason I don't really like the Bradley Chubb situation is because of the contract that he's currently under. Don't really know how I feel about that going into this. I know he has 4 sacks on the year, 1 forced fumble, only 22 tackles on the year. It's not like he really is involved in too much. As far as Jalen Phillips is concerned, again, the major concern of his is, it's the injury concern. Just like if I'm trying to think edge, I'm trying to think more long-term solution to this matter. I don't know how I feel about Jalen Phillips because, his first 3 seasons was doing phenomenal. And, he obviously in 2023, he got injured. In 8 games, he had 6.5 sacks, was well on his way to potentially getting his first double-digit sack season. And then in 2024, only played in 4 games. And then this year, he has played in every game this year, but the numbers have not caught back up. And I'm concerned about that, Cody, because, you know how I am about edge guys and their sack numbers. If their sack numbers went from high to going down to low, that's a huge concern for me. If it's low going to high, that's when I feel a little bit more inclined to see what they have going for them. But I definitely think that, I don't know if he has better days ahead of him just in a new setting. I'm scared with that. Bradley Chubb, I certainly wouldn't mind it, but, I'm thinking like for corner trades, I'm fine with a player like this because we don't need our corners at this moment to be big star corners because we already have a bunch of star secondary players in our secondary already. We just need a competent guy versus edge. I don't want a competent guy on the edge. I want somebody that's going to take me to the next level. Now, I think Bradley Chubb would be a lot better of an option for that. The contract will definitely be something that we have to wonder about, but if I had to choose between one of the two, then I would take Chubb in that.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Well, we have just a couple more things I want to talk about here when it comes to linebacker. I'll just list the guys here, Derek. I have two guys in mind here out of the four that I'm mentioning. Logan Wilson requested a trade. He, obviously, the Lou Anarumo connection. We know that very well. You have Jordan Brooks, who's also on the Miami Dolphins. So you notice a trend looking at Miami a lot of players there, but I believe he still leads the league in tackles right now, could be a fit there. Demario Davis, even though he's older, that would definitely be a rental here, Derek. And then the last player, a player that a lot of people were shocked at, but Jamal Adams has moved down to linebacker, and he would offer more of a coverage standpoint there. So any players that stand out to you here that you think would be fits, if you had to choose maybe one, who would be the guy that you would want?
I don't know how I feel about Jamal Adams. I don't know how I feel about that particular circumstance. I mean, again, Jamal Adams has always been a guy that has not always portrayed himself as, the greatest of teammates for sure. And like you said, Demario Davis would be a 1-year rental. I don't know what service we would get from him on that. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Logan Wilson definitely makes a lot more sense just because we saw what he was under Lou Anarumo. He was his best version of himself. And who knows how, but again, who knows how he would look in this new defense. But I definitely agree that, like, when it comes to the linebacker group, it can't get any worse covering the pass right now in the linebacker room than what it is right now. So I don't really have a lot of room to stand on for anyone being worse in pass coverage than what Zaire Franklin, Jermaine Pratt, and whoever else we decide to throw out there is. So,
Yeah.
can't really complain too much.
I think you just need somebody on third down. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think you need a linebacker out there that thrives in that area, right? You just need somebody that is going to actually try to get a hand on a tight end and do something in coverage. Like, that has been probably one of the biggest issues, although you've, for the most part, been able to avoid it in most games, right? You've been fortunate. Like, that's something, if you're looking at this defense, that you could really use, is just more of a player that you put in certain packages, right? And if you can get a player like a Logan Wilson, who I believe really does thrive in coverage, I think that would be a good fit. Knowing Lou Anarumo, he's going to come for cheap because he requested a trade. Like, that would be something that I would be on board for there. Nothing splash crazy, but just maybe a guy that has more of a role for this defense in coverage. I think that would be something that would help your linebackers and just your coverage game on those, those third and longs and stuff where the Colts have struggled, right? Maybe that can help over the middle a little bit more. So that would definitely be helpful. And who knows, maybe when, Jalen Carlisle maybe gets back this year, maybe then there's more of a package for them on third down. I don't know, but that would definitely be something that I'd be looking for if I'm the Indianapolis Colts. And if I'm looking at any linebacker, I'm looking at the guy that knows Lou and, like you said, had his best years under Lou Anarumo. So, yeah, that really does it, though, here, guys, for this one. We're looking at some players here. Again, there's a ton more. And there's a lot more, I'm sure, that we haven't named, but these were just some of kind of the bigger names that people have tossed around. I've seen, just on some potential trade opportunities for the Indianapolis Colts. So just wanted to bring all these guys up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Again, shout out to FanDuel for sponsoring this episode and every episode for the 2025 season. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.